Welcome, everyone, to the captive audience. I am Kevin Hoare, not buying the official explanation. And with me here tonight is our regular, seemingly monthly co host from the Young Republicans of Oregon, State Chairman Stephen Lloyd. Stephen, welcome to the program. June 24th. Last time you were on was a lifetime ago politically. We had a different Democrat presumptive nominee. We had no idea who that we might actually see. I think you just described her as the least liked vice president of all time, might actually be their nominee. We had uh, no inkling of an attempted shooting of the president of the United States, attempted assassination, and then followed rather soon thereafter by the Republican National Convention, which we learned who our vice presidential nominee choice was for President Trump, and then and then the stories just continue to unfold from there. Why don't we start out there, because that's a lot, and then there's of course breaking news here in Oregon that we'd like to get to as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just want to add one more thing. We had no idea that 2% roof grades were so dangerous.
That what? 2%? What?
2% roof grades were
dangerous. Yeah, 2%.
Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit more. I'm
Did you say also they said it was too hot?
Yeah, it was too hot. It was too hot.
Yeah. No, there's been some, usually this is just stuff the Babylon Bee would come up with, but we're living in a Babylon Bee world for sure.
Yeah, I want to know. I want to know when we fell into this wormhole that both the Simpsons and the Babylon Bee are both correct on multiple counts.
Yeah, I know. And conspiracy theories are really just minutes away from becoming conspiracy truth and conspiracy fact. Just wait,
Well, and my suggestion, for my entertainment mostly, selfishly, I would like for all of our viewers out there to put your favorite conspiracy theories that are soon to be conspiracy facts in the sidebar, just for the chuckles.
Yeah, please. Yeah. There's one here. Bobby Richardson Kotek is resigning, so we're spreading a good rumor there. You know what? Can't rule it out.
I was about to say, Kevin, is that true? Because anything is possible in 2024. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I have been trying to keep up with the memes that are generated out of all this stuff, and I just can't, because they are surpassing the ability of reasonable-minded people to keep up with. I saw a really good one the other day, which was become an agent of the United States Secret Service, now hiring individuals with roofing experience. And they show these guys in suits falling down the side of a relatively light incline to a roof.
Well, there's all kinds of good ones out there. Matter of fact, today at work, somebody on one of our job sites, one of the guys was showing me a video. It was about Secret Service Gal. I think that's what the song was called. And I think that it was created with ChatGPT, but it was kind of like a Conway Twitty twist on a country song about DEI hire Secret Service Gal. And I have to tell you, it was pretty good. And so all you would-be songwriters out there, be careful. AI's coming for you.
That's right. Here we go. I'll add this to our thing. This is the one that I saw, which was hilarious. And I mean, the meme makers, they just take the stories that are actually happening and then they just go and do it.
Oh man,
it's great. I know and of course you must have seen the Kamala Harris Twitter thing that was created, which is, I acknowledge, not actually her saying these things as presented. However, they're going after Elon Musk for some strange reason because they're like, well, he's violated his own rules on Twitter. No, it's really upset us. And the reason why he posted it is because it's satire. And what makes satire funny is that it's true. You know, that's what makes satire actually truly effective is people see it and they're like, did she
Yeah.
really say that? Because frankly, that sounds like what she really meant to say.
Yeah. Yeah, and all of the things that Kamala Harris has said, just out there alone, that should be embarrassing enough for her not to be qualified for this object or for this office. I mean, her comments about electric buses. I mean, it was so amateurish. It was so silly.
I've
How
seen the
could we?
video of her saying she wants to ban meat. She agreed with the idea. I think we need to reduce meat consumption. Take
Well,
that to the voters of Ohio and Pennsylvania and Michigan and
mhm.
see how long you last as a candidate.
Well, and I heard somebody speaking about how when she was in, was it California? Was that where she was at?
She's from California, yeah.
Whenever she was in office, she wanted to enforce the rules when it came to student truancy. And so what she said is, she said, you know, it should be against the law for children not to get a good education. So what we're going to start doing is we're going to start jailing the parents for truant students. And so if you're a single mom out there and your kid um, rambunctiously skips school, could you imagine them kicking down the front door because a person at the Department of Education said your son or your daughter had been absent 3 days of school in a row, so you're going to jail. And so, I mean, she and the other, one of the other things that really blows me away and makes me really nervous about her being in office is she basically got into an argument with Joe Biden during the debate, and even Joe Biden, they were talking about it's X amount of months after this last mass shooting, and you really haven't done much on it other than a couple executive orders. And then she flipped the script on him, and she basically said, you know, there's what you can do and there's what you should do, and we're going to do it anyways. And that's when she went into her crazy cackling. And Joe Biden's like, no, there's things we can do in the Constitution, and then there's things we can't do. And she just kept laughing maniacally. And I have to say, I think that there's a certain amount of uh, willful ignorance, just bliss that she has. And she doesn't care. She really doesn't care about your rights. She doesn't care about your family. She doesn't care about, like, she is a she's a terrifying individual that is driven to just to higher office. And in my opinion, I don't understand why she didn't do anything when she was the border czar. And I know the Democrat viewers over there are going to say that, you know, that's not an official title, but she never once went down to the border when that was part of her responsibility.
I
And it,
have a video
oh, okay.
of uh, that you can watch as much as you want from the Associated Press of Joe Biden bequeathing the job of reducing the influx of refugees and people traveling to the border, and then her thanking him for assigning her these duties. No one could be more directly responsible, having been assigned that role, for the status of what happened at the border, which got exponentially worse, exponentially worse. So, yeah, this is you want. Does anybody truly want to have a person for the next 4 years who won't take any responsibility for a job they actually had for the last 4 years and claim
Mhm.
that they never really had it? That's not a person that you can count on anything they say. And they actually, the Democrat talking points on Kamala's border czar role were leaked. I just posted a YouTube. You can go watch it, and they explain all of this. And um, there's a growing realization that after the sugar high, as they call it, of Kamala replacing a cadaver, um, which now everybody finally admits that he's a cadaver. It's just that no one wants to admit that they helped convince people otherwise just long enough to put the Democrat Party in this situation.
Well,
Kamala, right?
my absolutely favorite part about this too is AOC was hooked. She was hooked. She was like and it's really funny because she's one of these people that's a part of like the squad, and she was
Mhm.
talking about the fact that she's all in for Biden, and that that there's division within the party. There's people who want to replace him, and she's like, no, he's our guy, whatever. And it's just really, really funny that they kind of hung her out to dry too, and they're just kind of like, no, we're going with Kamala, we're going with her, and it just blows me away that how divided the Democrat Party is and how they are truly eating their own right now. And I have to tell you, it would be so fun to be a fly on the wall, sitting in the chambers when they decided, hey, JoJo's out, and we're gonna put in the Joker over here.
Well, I'd like to know what they said to him in the final hours, because the way he left, the way he dropped his run,
Yeah.
He was literally saying the previous day that he's staying in no matter what. And he sent his own staff people out on the Sunday morning shows that morning, just a couple of hours before he quit the race, to tell everybody that he was staying in. And his own staff people found out that he was dropping out at 1:45 p.m. Eastern time. And at 1:46 p.m. Eastern time, the letter that Biden supposedly produced in great contemplation, with a signature that people are finding pretty darn sketchy. It doesn't look like his signature. No one will ever explain that one. It falls into the category of birth certificates we'll never figure out. And it went out at 1:46. The staff had an entire 1 minute to take it in and realize that they're toast, and the guy that they're working for is an invalid who's not running anymore. And then you saw this sprinkling of people pretending to be exercising restraint in endorsing her. Not Nancy Pelosi, who cooked up a lot of this, but Schumer. Well, 2 days later, after apparently through conversations with delegates, for which there is no official tally published of who said what, the Associated Press confirmed, without providing details, that Kamala Harris had commitments from enough delegates to clinch the nomination. And then Chuck Schumer said, well, now that we've followed the process, we definitely now have a nominee. What process? It's all press releases and media statements. No one's voted. No one got to vote. Nothing has been publicly disclosed as to who's doing what to support whom. It was all just, they were just it's all simulated reality that they just imposed on it. And then people pretended that they were waiting. And then 48 hours after that, she declared that, or she got the endorsement from Biden, which I don't even know how that helps you at this point. Schumer is endorsing her. And then they wait 2 or 3 more days into latter part of last week, and then the Obamas endorse her, and it's done, apparently.
Well, the thing that I find really, really uncomfortable about this is the Democrats have been saying for months, our democracy is in danger, our democracy is in peril, our democracy is under attack. And
they're right.
Well,
by Biden and Harris and all the people supporting them.
That's the thing that is so clear in this situation, is that whatever they accuse us of, it's what they're doing. They didn't follow their party's process. They don't give a dang. They don't give a rip about the party's process. They will install your leader and you will accept it. They will shove this person down our throats, and if they're not going to follow their party's process because they can't win through those normal, because they didn't want Harris, because they didn't want Biden, because they didn't want whomever, if they can't win through their own party process, which would be easy enough for them to manipulate, being at the highest bows of that, what makes you think that they're going to give the American people a fair shake in November?
They're not. There's no way that they can leave the fate of democracy to democracy. Apparently,
Hmm.
that would be way too dangerous. They already know who they want and how they're going to get there, and they've tried everything that doesn't qualify as democracy to do it.
Well,
Phony charges levied at Trump, trying to convict him of non-crimes and conjured crimes with lying witnesses and biased judges and biased juries that they've carefully, meticulously arranged to happen exactly at the moment when they were experiencing the greatest electoral uh, uh, setbacks, in the polling,
mhm.
or there was a story coming out about Joe Biden that would undermine his prospects, and they would come out with there would within days it would be like, well, there's now charges filed against President Trump and in in Georgia over election, lying or whatever, and they just made stuff up, and it's all collapsing now. Trump ended up getting convicted of non felonious felonies involving business records and a non-disclosure agreement that was totally legal. Uh, and what did the consequence for the Democrats is that Trump raised $300 million from there until uh, the convention. And so the only thing is that this is bread and circuses, because Kamala now has raised like $100 million, and it was all these people who weren't donating. It was the pent up donations to Biden that weren't coming in since the debate. So
Yep.
that's all it is. But now they're starting to find out what they also didn't know, which many of them had not been told, is that Kamala Harris is an awful candidate, awful policymaker, awful elected official. She actually compared ICE to the KKK, the agency that's supposed to be protecting our border that aren't
Mhm.
allowed to. And she said that they should get rid of it. She said that when she was a U.S. senator. You can't unsay these things. But they've been trying to stick stuff like this down a memory hole, like the borders are designation, which almost every news outlet actually uttered those words at the time.
Right.
And now they've gone back to those old articles and edited it out or put in other words to correct the record because it looks bad. This is
Well, and
Orwellian in the extreme.
there's been nothing done. Like, you guys remember a couple summers ago when they were screaming and beating their chest and tying each other, like they went down to the Portland ICE office and they were tying each other to the bollards around the ICE office so that the ICE officers couldn't leave their building. When they were doing that, they were complaining about kids in cages. Why don't you ask the Harris and Biden administration what they've done about that? If it's so egregious, if it's so unhumanitarian, if AOC is going to go down there and cry crocodile tears, what has been done? And the answer is nothing. If
Oh,
if
worse than nothing.
it's been
They
expanded,
have created the biggest humanitarian civil rights crisis in a generation
hmm
uh, with the human smuggling that's going on at the
yeah,
border. There are people that are literally being brought in as slaves, sex
hmm
slaves, and sold in our country with the help and support of the Biden Harris administration. And only now are they seemingly pretending to care and say they're going to do something about it and decrying the very policy they gave birth to and fostered for the past 3.5 years. It's too late to convince people that they didn't really mean it.
Well, the thing that I do think is a little comical is that somebody dropped two busloads of of illegal immigrants onto Kamala Harris's vice presidential home on her front lawn. I don't know
Yeah.
if you guys have seen that, but being the borders are, she should know exactly what to do with those individuals.
Yeah.
My preference would be send them back home to their country of origin, but uh, there you go. I'm interested to see what happens to those
Well,
individuals.
Stephen Miller actually had a really good analysis of this, and he reacted to this media narrative that's being invented. I think that's what I just posted the video there. It's well worth watching, but he kind of lays it out because the border crisis and this humanitarian crisis that's evolved, and the fentanyl and meth crises that have
Yeah.
exploded during these past 3.5 years, fueling all the other things that have exploded: the
Well,
homelessness, the addiction, the crime waves engulfing each city. She's for all of it, and she actually was for in 2020. She raised money for the fund that bailed out the people who were mostly peaceful protesters burning Minneapolis to the ground.
mhm.
And she also, I saw the video. She wanted to ban meat. She was agreeing with the idea that we needed to reduce meat consumption. I
Yeah.
think she should run on that. I think she should take that on the campaign trail and scream it at people in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, Georgia. Tell them. In fact, she should hold a special. Maybe this is something that could erupt nationwide. Is all the barbecues on Labor Day should be Kamala, hands off our meat, woman. You know, hands off my meat, woman. Because this is like literally telling people, well, we'll let you have some meat, but it's bad for the environment if you have too much meat. So what we're going to let you do is you can grill some tofu and some mushrooms, and that should be fine. Everybody will be happy. No one will need to own anything, and you'll be happy. It just has this Orwellian Klaus Schwab quality to it, except she doesn't sound like a serious person. She sounds like a giggling moron every time she says or does anything.
But that's the most terrifying and insidious thing about her, is she's threatening you with a smile on her face, with just a maniacal laugh. And some people would say that it's I think people that they take her at a joke, and she's deathly serious about the things that she's talking about.
The consequences are serious. She might be an idiot, but the consequences of having an idiot in charge are profound. That's where it's at. And by the way, there was another. Remember Steve Moore, who came out and spoke to us at the Reagan dinner
Yeah.
last fall? Steve Moore, he was the senior Trump campaign senior economic advisor back in when President Trump was in office. And he discusses inflation. So there's probably no one person who can more directly be held personally responsible for the inflation that's hit our country, because we know it was driven by extreme amounts of government spending and, of course, regulations that constrained the ability of the private sector markets to respond to the increased demand that was generated. So they drove up demand with extreme amounts of spending that wasn't actually necessary anymore, but they just knew they could get away with it at the time and get it passed. Guess who in a tied Senate between 2021 and 2022 cast the deciding vote on these bills in the U.S. Senate? Well, the president of the Senate, who happens to be the vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris.
Yep, absolutely. And I think it's not even. I don't even think they care about the financial stake of America, because I think that they are fine with enforcing whatever force they want at the tip of a gun, from their local law enforcement all the way to our military. They don't care how much they spend. It
Well, and
will.
she has no problem with the hypocrisy that she will be surrounded by guns protecting her, but
Yeah.
she will be happy to make sure you don't have any. And that's you can take that one to the bank because it's what she did in California in order to bolster her political profile. She put a bunch of people in jail for marijuana possession.
Hmm.
And then she was asked one day and really actually taken to task in 2020 when she was running for president and was never won a delegate. She will be the only nominee of the Democrat Party who's never actually earned a delegate in a primary or caucus ever. And when Tulsi Gabbard, who was running for the Democrat nomination at that time, uh, took called her out on the carpet and whomped her with the remark that as Attorney General in California, she not only saw to it that a bunch of people were put in jail for marijuana possession, but
Yeah.
then when asked if she had actually smoked marijuana or used marijuana, she just giggled.
Well,
And that's her that was her answer. She didn't answer. And I believe later she actually clarified that she in fact did, which means that
hmm
she has no problem putting you in jail. It's just that she's above the law.
yeah. Yep. She's top cop. She can do whatever she wants. And that's the problem. I mean, we can't have people who are supposed to represent us um, acting this way that they don't have to follow the rules.
That's
We
exactly right.
we need equality under the law. Period. In
Equal
a
justice
in
under the law. Here's a couple more good memes. I got a this one made my this had to make all of our heads spin actually because it's so true. Um, it's funny how here we go. Let me just bring it in here. It's funny how the left went from riding with Biden to let's abandon Brandon. That wasn't Republicans. We were long over uh, believing this guy was a real thing. But the way they dropped him like a hot rock,
Yeah.
even I know some people that almost felt sorry for him because even though it's really hard to, given the lies they told and the way his elder abuse wife uh, perpetrated this, and their crackhead son, who we had to be drugged through all of that. I mean, the best thing that happened for Hunter Biden is that Joe Biden stopped running for president because people probably not pay much attention to him, and he's going to get a pardon. I don't care what they say, but
Ugh.
they dropped Biden like he wasn't even there. Um, and you know, who's shocked at that? Because this isn't about what's good for the country. This is about what's good for their political futures. And this one is actually excellent as well. Let's see if I can do this a little bit faster and get skilled at this. Um, the old Monty Python Holy Grail, bring out your dead, bring out your dead. And of course, there's the one that gets thrown into the cart and it goes, wait a second, I'm not dead yet. And that's Biden. But look who's throwing him in the cart, Kamala.
Mhm.
And I think it's hilarious how they talk about how much she loves Joe and Jill Biden. They love each other. I haven't heard that at all. Uh,
No.
and I know that there was real sore feelings when she actually called Joe Biden in a debate a racist. But 2 months later, he selected her as his vice presidential running mate.
He
Coming
didn't
from the guy who
select
said
her.
Hunter Biden's the smartest man he ever knew, we should really look askance at this.
All right. So is that what's going to happen? Is Hunter Biden going to come out as vice president for Kamala Harris, being the smartest guy that Joe knows?
There we go. We found her pick. We know who it is now. It's solved. By the
Yep.
way, I posted a link to that video that Elon Musk shared that all the left is going absolutely nuts about. It's clear that this is it's a satire making fun of Kamala, using her own words to piece together something that actually is like the thought bubble that's actually going through her head when she says some of the stuff she says. And then I saw a great one this morning that had Kamala. It was a post that somebody, I think it was Chong, I forget his first name, but he's a pretty good Twitter post guy. I think Lars Larson shared it, that Kamala was explaining the international situation, and it was 2 minutes long. And it was just a circular thing of platitudes and vague generalities where I didn't learn anything, but it was a
No.
pure word salad. And then, of course, everybody knows the famous word salad of explaining, like she is a toddler, the Ukraine war, the way she explained it.
Hmm.
Ukraine is a country in Europe. It's next to another country in Europe that's a bigger country, and that's Russia. And Russia decided to invade Ukraine, and that's bad. And it's just like this person's going to be in charge of nuclear weapons.
Well, and it's really funny because when she announced that she was going to be running, or when she was going to take the nomination or whatever, it's really interesting if you watch a number of Kamala Harris's, like when she comes up and speaks, she does the same things every single time. She points to 2 or 3 people out in the audience that she just had a conversation with 2 seconds ago, like saying how much she appreciates them. She's trying to make a connection with the people in the room, and it all comes off very, very hollow. And then, just like what you said, it she comes off and she talks in the most childish way. And I don't know. There's no way. There's no way that this person is the best that the Democrats have. And I am just blown away that they're like, yeah, we know we're going to lose, so we'll burn this one up.
Well, but there's a lot of people saying, well, Kamala seems to be surging in the polls.
No.
I still think that the real movement is not real. I think that we'll see where she's at by Labor Day after they get through their convention. But I do
Why
think,
even have the convention? Why waste the money?
well, because it's a free paid advertising, and I have to admit, conventions kind of are just formalities, because they didn't use it for what a convention could be used for, which is to select their nominee when the nominee that they thought they were going to have isn't available anymore. But no, they're quickly trying to calculate what she's going to do, what she's going to say. She's going to be, if they keep her highly scripted through the rest of the campaign, all we'll have is the things she said before, because I think she's going to stay on teleprompter. She's not going to talk to people in unscripted moments, anybody who's unfriendly. I think that's what she's going to do. And then I saw her teleprompter driven speech to the American Federation of Teachers, and it was a socialist rally is what it was.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
what it was. But it made her sound like she was some heroic figure, at least to the people that were there.
Well, and when I think it's very interesting that when she got Barack Obama's endorsement, they did it over the phone. They didn't even come and say, "Hey, you've got my endorsement." It was kind of like this cheesy thing where she was on the cell phone. It was all scripted. It was completely scripted. There wasn't anything off the cuff, and it just looked so. It rang hollow. It was so bad. And if that's the lip service that the left wants to do, because they're still trying to run off the laurels of Barack Obama, then I hate to tell you this, guys, you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose hard.
It's going to be a catastrophic election for them, because I do think, as somebody said the other day about Kamala Harris to me, they said, I think that sliver is going to work itself out. In other words, she's going to be exposed. Now, I think the top contender for her Veep is becoming apparent. I don't know if you've seen it.
Newsom?
No, actually, I don't think Newsom is I think Mark Kelly, the former astronaut and U.S. Senator from Arizona, is the top prospect. And actually, here's something interesting. The RNC research folks picked out that Democrat Senator Mark Kelly, a top Kamala VP contender, started a spy balloon company funded by China. So pretty good business to be in during the Biden administration. but they figure that that gives them a chance in Arizona. That maybe he has some broader appeal, maybe in Nevada and maybe in the Midwest. All they care about is the swing states, because the other states they figure are largely decided, or they've stabilized. Kamala said she wanted to ban fracking.
Yeah.
She literally said it.
Yep.
And she said it emphatically. So that's 5.9 million jobs nationwide. That's 400,000 jobs in Pennsylvania. And so she wants to nuke nearly 6 million jobs.
Well, do you remember when Joe Biden got in? He friggin' closed that pipeline like that. Like that. He shut that down. I mean, these types of things, the Democrats love killing jobs, but then they also like to come in and say that they're the job creators. It's such a weird walk that they do. I mean, I'm just absolutely blown away that they can continue with the amount of success that they have, especially considering Joe Biden was not going to get very many rational young people's votes. And so Kamala Harris, she's even more unsavory when it comes to the youth that I have spoken with. I don't know a single person who's excited about her running. But if Mark Kelly runs, it brings an interesting twist to it. But I don't think it can overcome. Like, Mark Kelly is going to lose. I don't really know him from Adam other than the YouTube videos of him talking about being in space. But other than that, he's going to lose credibility by
being on a ticket with her.
Like, can you imagine? Like, you have done these great
Democrats
things.
Don't care. They
these
just
heroic
need
things,
to fool enough people to win the election. That's all they care about.
and then absolutely lose your total credibility because you're with this joker.
Power. That's that. Whatever it takes to get it. And I think they also know that their competence they're not being held accountable for their incompetence. And I just posted the link to Kamala Harris as Ian Miles Chong, who's hilarious. He posted the video of her giving a speech in front of Air Force Two. Kamala Harris is somehow even less coherent than a man with Alzheimer's, and you proceed to watch it, and it's like a 2-minute long video. But this is how close we are to having a complete disaster on our hands, because there's no way that foreign leaders are going to take this person seriously. No amount of vice presidential backup is going to fix what Kamala Harris represents as far as convincing people. If you thought a guy who couldn't remember the names of any of the people he was talking to and had to literally be removed from ceremonies because he was losing it was bad, at least he had foreign policy experience. It was all bad, but at least he had it. Do you think VP Giggles is going to convince anyone not to invade a country? She showed up in Poland just a couple of weeks before Putin invaded Ukraine, saying we've got him deterred. He won't invade because he knows that we're serious.
She has foreign policy experience after all.
That is her foreign policy experience, right? And when you see her answering a question from a liberal reporter, by the way, about whether she had gone to the border, and she goes, "We've been to the border. We've been to the border."
Have you been?
Yeah. No, that it's we and blah blah blah. And no, but that's the problem. Is this is still a close call. I don't think we're running away with this one, because I believe for the longest time that Biden would be replaced. It started looking less likely after the State of the Union address, because I thought he made through that hurdle. He got to the point where they didn't need to replace him in the primaries, and that they could. But look how much control they had. I said it at the time. It's like, but the later it gets, the more a handful of insiders have control over who gets the nomination.
Total control.
And that happened exactly the way I said it could, which is um, get past the voters, democracy, and get to where, the Pelosi's, the Schumers, the Obamas
Well,
could choose who it's going to be and control a relatively small group of people and use the media to manipulate the whole thing. And that's exactly what they did.
the part that's so uncomfortable for me is I don't know if it's Schumer. I don't know if it's the Obamas. I don't know if it's Pelosi, but you can tell that the sheet has been pulled out from under us, um, and I just have to say, like, no one should have this much power to be able to basically mute a president who wants to run for election, and then all of a sudden just rips it out from underneath of them. I mean, that should be a warning call to every single American out there that says your vote is mattering less and less, and they have all of the power and they can do whatever they want. And so we have to make a massive change in this election. We have to put the right people in office so that we can make sure and root out these individuals who think that their will is above the American people.
Well, they've been doing this stuff to the country for years. They were doing it, during COVID. They were doing it to create a phony narrative about January 6th,
yeah,
covering up any mitigating evidence, throwing people in jail for going to the bathroom
right.
in the Capitol, while literally people did billions of dollars in damage, burning cities down for an entire summer. And they're like, but they're just mostly peaceful protesters sending a message about racial inequality. That these same people have been doing this to us for years, and they've had the help and the cooperation of the media.
Well,
What happened is the media realized they couldn't defend Biden anymore. They had used up everything. All the tricks are gone, and he got finally exposed. But it took a debate, which, just think if Biden had never taken that debate and just continued giving teleprompter speeches. And, I personally said at the time that I thought that someone had decided that they wanted him out, and that's why they did encourage him to debate.
a lot of people have that same opinion, and it's just really crazy that they're eating their own this way. Uh, I don't know. Like
people who are destroying the country, why would eating some of their allies who fell by the wayside in this quest to, radically transform the nation into what they think it should be, and then lie to people about it all the way so that the people still vote for you? Why would we put it past them to go and devour a few of their own people? It's
morality, goodness, love for your fellow man, being a good citizen. I don't know. Like I can think of like 50 reasons just off the cuff.
Well, look, there's a bigger picture here also, because I think we're starting to realize that, first of all, almost every institution in the government has been undermined to the degree that even though there are good people in those institutions, the Secret Service used to be one of the ones that was above reproach. Like, you can't trust anybody else, you trust these guys.
Yeah.
Well, they clearly, at this point, cannot be trusted with protecting the President of the United States. The article here, would-be Trump assassin was on law enforcement radar nearly 100 minutes before the shooting. The timelines have constantly been revised from something that looked like a total surprise to actually they were texting each other about the guy. And in this case, 100 minutes before Trump walked onto the stage. And they let Trump walk onto the stage and told him nothing.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, but if some people start to sense that there's a conspiracy here, I think it's up to the people who have created the circumstances to make that a very believable conspiracy to start telling the damn truth or go to jail lying. And that's something that's got to happen. But this guy, this 20-year-old nobody, was often a step ahead of the Secret Service, this article says. And even when it was obvious that the guy was there and people were literally pointing at him,
yelling
up there and taking video of him being there, they didn't do anything. And then finally, the guy was shot after he got 8 shots off, wounding 3 people and killing 1. One of the 3 that were wounded was President Trump. And then, this is the worst part of all. The FBI director, who, I mean, maybe this institution's completely lost now, because the FBI director gets up there, admits that they knew about this guy, but then he proceeds, when asked if the president was shot in the ear or not.
They said it was like broken glass or some nonsense.
Well, somebody else said that. Somebody else said that. They said it was the teleprompters. That was quickly debunked, because the entire video of the event shows the 2 teleprompters sitting there completely undamaged during and after the entire thing took place. So there's also a photo taken by a New York Times reporter that I have seen. It's an amazing photo, because I don't know why. I mean, how that guy kept taking pictures when bullets that weren't very accurate were flying through there. He got a picture of President Trump like this, and the bullet, you can see his head, and you can see the bullet literally whizzing through the air behind him. That is the photo that they caught, breaking through the air. And then there was also, and then of course we know a second later, President Trump went like that. Then he realized it was going down, and he got down. And then the Secret Service dove on top of him. This guy was there and kept shooting it the whole time, and he's the one who got the iconic photo of President Trump pumping his fist into the air after that.
Well, there are so many iconic photos when it comes to this situation. Like when the Secret Service, they tackle President Trump and they're assessing him on the ground. And meanwhile, there's a Secret Service person behind the DS, and she's like hiding behind it. And I'm just like, she's literally using President Trump for cover. And the thing is like, there were so many failures at that event.
Well, I want to call them failures, except that too many failures, and it starts to test the limits of believability about mass incompetence. When there's knowledge of, for instance, a threat for 100 minutes, how can somebody be that incompetent? How can that many people be that incompetent? And by the way, I believe, and I think this needs to be confirmed, but I believe I remember hearing in the reports last week that there was a sniper, not one of the Secret Service ones, but one of the ones that was there from local law enforcement, who had the guy in his sights and said, "That guy, do I need to take him out?" And apparently he was told not to. He's told to stand down, not to take the guy out. If that's true, then someone is that's a criminal offense. That is reckless endangerment, or a manslaughter, or something along those lines, where, negligent activity and a decision that clearly endangered people's lives, some other factor was weighed in, which caused them to make a decision that was catastrophically wrong. And it's not incompetence when you get to that point, because someone died, actually, and other people were injured, and a president was nearly killed. The only thing that the Democrats have to live with is the fact that this made President Trump look like a victim, which has got to be the most amazing political accomplishment of all time, is to make him look like a victim, and then to look like a hero for standing up once he was attacked. So,
well, my biggest issue with all of this is CNN doesn't live stream Trump's political events very often. And Joe Biden was actually doing an event across town. And I find this is the part that I find to be the most unusual about this. CNN has a choice to choose between live streaming Joe Biden's event or Donald Trump's, and they were doing Donald Trump's. That seems the most suspicious out of everything that I've heard so far, and I want an explanation of who made that decision.
Well, they also had all the foreign dignitaries in D.C. for the NATO summit, and so they decided. I mean, I guess a bunch of President Trump's Secret Service really weren't Secret Service. They were people they borrowed from the Treasury Department and other FBI and so on, and they so some of this is starting to make sense of just a mass incompetence, plus under resourced, plus poorly led, but still there's just too many things that have gone wrong and too many decisions that led to this result. And then the Secret Service director comes in and
Man, she saw stuff.
failure, and then she resigns the next day. You know?
Well, and my thing is, I don't believe, like, she still needs to be investigated.
Of course.
She still needs, like, and here's the problem that I have with all of this. January 6th, it was investigated into the ground by multiple sources. Do you have a clear picture of what happened that day? Because I still have a lot of questions.
Well, and the information that actually was revealed later when videos were released, when Nancy Pelosi admitted on video that she actually was responsible for deciding not to take action that led to it, a different picture emerges.
Yeah, and the thing is yes, you can find where she says that now, but you wouldn't have been able to find that when they were doing their investigation and having their congressional oversight committees and everything like that. And it's going to be the same thing that happens with this. We're not going to be able to hear the narrative until after Trump is reelected into office. Like, we're not going to be able to hear the full facts of it and how this guy was how this guy was what is it called? Basically turned and he became this extremist. And
well, and he actually had encrypted overseas accounts.
Well, that's another weird thing. I don't know about you, Kevin. How many encrypted overseas accounts do you have? None? I don't.
Well, I know that if I decide to go and do what he did, a lot of people should be talking about what was going on with those accounts. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's like, and yet they pretend like nothing to see here. Move along. So there's and there's actually a House investigator right now that is trying to pierce through the cover-up of the Secret Service's January 6th failures.
Yeah.
Using a subpoena, the Homeland Security Department's Inspector General has completed a report on the Secret Service missteps during the Capitol crisis 3.5 years ago, but is refusing to release it. Who the hell is this guy? Yeah. Where does he get to decide that Congress, the people's elected representatives, don't get this information? This leads me to mentioning something that is of enormous importance. There's actually some good news here in the state today. There is, Oregon is probably not going to put President Trump over the top in the general election. Will contribute to the votes that are added up, in the general election nationwide. But you don't elect a president that way. You win electoral votes, and there's 6 states that make all the difference. Where this race is going back and forth, those are the swing states. I mean, they're easy to name. It's Nevada, it's Arizona, it's Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. And then the other states are more or less in one camp or the other, but those 6 states kind of determine the outcome because and at one time some of those states were not swing states. So people are saying, "Oh, the Electoral College, blah blah blah." It's always the same. No, it's not always the same states. But the last couple of elections, it's been the same states.
Yeah.
However, we are now witnessing a set of circumstances that in Oregon, where there is a very important thing. You don't get President Trump's policies. You don't get to save America by winning the presidency and then turning over the House of Representatives to Hakeem Jeffries as Speaker. You certainly don't get honesty. You don't get to the bottom of Secret Service January 6th failures or July 14th or 15th Secret Service failures. You don't get to the bottom of all the fraud, all the money that's been spent, all the failed policies and disastrous things, all the lies. You don't get to the bottom of any of that. You don't even begin to change what the government's actually doing and what it's spending money on and how it's not doing what it should be doing, which is securing the border and defending the country. You don't get any of that if you don't get the House of Representatives and keep it in Republican hands. And Oregon actually can make a difference on that. There are 3 seats which are, up in the air. And in a House of Representatives only controlled by 2 seats nationally, 3 seats in Oregon is enough to change the outcome. One of those seats is in Republican hands. The other 2 are in Democrat hands. It's the 5th district, represented by Lori Chavez DeRemer. She's challenged by former or current state representative Janelle Bynum, and she is. And then there's the 6th district, which is represented by former state representative Andrea Salinas, current congresswoman, who won by a narrow less than 6,000 votes in 2022. Lori won the 5th district by less than 7,000 votes in 2022. So those are extremely, extremely close.
Very tight.
Mike Erickson, it's a rematch with Mike Erickson, the businessman who ran in 2022. And then there's one district which wasn't as close in 2022, although Alex Carlitos did come fairly close until the very end.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the 4th district, where in 2022, the retiring Peter DeFazio left it as an open seat, and former majority leader and Bureau of Labor and Industry director Val Hoyle won the seat that year. But that year, we didn't know a lot about Val Hoyle compared to what we know now. She is mired in a massive corruption scandal involving Lamoda, the same company that brought down the now former Secretary of State Shemia Fagan within just weeks. And Val Hoyle is implicated in a pay-to-play scheme where she got money for this marijuana company by taking donations from them, supposedly in the form of cashier's checks, money orders, which
that's crazy,
is pretty shady. And that's a step up from what they used to do, which is they just gave bags of cash to people. And, and that's a company, by the way, Lamoda, that owed millions in unpaid federal and state taxes and somehow was getting awarded grants. Well, it turns out Val Hoyle was all behind that, and she made it happen, and she was getting donations for it. In January, she was exposed again because the Department of Justice decided to launch an investigation into her activities with Lamoda while she was at the Bureau of Labor and Industry. So she's under federal investigation. She's a sitting congresswoman. She votes hard left on everything. And she votes against the interests of her district repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's also the 2nd worst fundraiser amongst the vulnerable Democrats in the House of Representatives. And this has all led to her facing a strong challenge from retired Air Force Colonel Monique Despain, who is emerged victorious from the primary, actually helped draw public attention that led to Val Hoyle being investigated. And now, at the conclusion of the primary, Val Hoyle was put on a list called the DCCC. That's the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, the entity that's in charge of trying to elect as many Democrats as possible to the House of Representatives by unseating Republicans and holding other seats. She's put on the frontline list, which is their admission that she's vulnerable because she needed help. Monique Despain today was just named to the National Republican Congressional Committee's Young Guns list. And that Young Guns list are the 24 seats out of 435 that are challenged by Republicans that are top prospects. They're going to get the maximum support and assistance from the national level, and that they're doing everything right, checking all the boxes that you need to do in order to be considered one of the races that they're all in on. So congratulations to Monique Despain on that. And this is a big deal because Oregon can actually move the needle here. We could actually help make sure that the House of Representatives stays in Republican hands, and that in this case, we take a seat away that's been in Democrat hands for 50 years.
Absolutely, absolutely. I personally would love to see Monique be able to take that Earl Blumenauer, whatever his name's, bow tie, and be able to hang that up once and for all, so we don't have any more Democrat bow ties in the office anymore.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Earl Blumenauer because Val Hoyle seems to think she's actually running in Earl Blumenauer's district, not a D+4 district, which is what she's in. That means there's 4% more Republicans than Democrats in terms of the breakdown of the district. Earl Blumenauer is in a +22 Democrat seat.
Sure.
But on 420, the marijuana smoking celebration day, Val Hoyle got together with Earl Blumenauer and celebrated the holiday. It's a holy day for Val Hoyle.
Well,
and this is somebody who is under federal investigation for doing dirty deals with a marijuana company. How stupid is that?
The thing that I find very interesting about it is at the beginning of I'd say 2 or 3 years ago, the thing with Shemia Fagan popped up, and or a year and a half ago. It seems like forever in political terms. But when Shemia Fagan came up and I heard about LaModa, I was like, this right here is organized crime. This is cartel-esque attitudes and actions. Yep. And now I'm starting to believe that maybe LaModa is ran by secret conservatives who are trying to root out all of the Democrats who are dumb enough to take bribes up and down the
I wish we were that diabolically clever. I can say for a great deal of certainty that we are not. That they actually cooked this one up, and the thing is, it's arrogance of people who've been in power for so long, career politicians like Val Hoyle, who think I can do whatever I want and color outside the lines and get away with it. No one's going to prosecute me. I will never experience any consequences for that. That's what this is. That's what she thinks. And it's been that way for decades. And well, maybe their luck is running out now because she's got a real challenger who's literally taken her to the woodshed. And I think you're going to see a lot happening here in the next 2 months that will shape these races. And so this is the 4th district, the 5th district, and the 6th district. So anybody who's watching this, you need to dig deep and figure out what you can do to help these races. And you say, well, I'm not in that district. Well, if you know somebody who is, tell them. Your money's green. By the way, you have something at stake with every congressional seat in the United States, especially these 3. If you live in the United States, you actually have something at stake in this race. And you can do something that any American citizen can do, which is you can donate to these races. Because as you know, Republicans have to pay to get their word out. And the Democrats get a lot of it for free through a media that's more than happy to carry their message. And so we got to act like this is what we got to do to counter it. You know, when people say, well, how do you win? Well, you outvote them and you outdo them in every way. And then you've got a pretty good chance maybe of eking out a win in the end. That's how it's going to be if we want to save the Republic. You know?
And I want to double down on that, like what Kevin's saying. You have the freedom of speech to go out and to spread the word about these candidates. The other thing is, as an Oregonian, we believe that your money is an extension of your freedom of speech. And so when you donate to these candidates, if you're outside of the district, ultimately these people are still pushing the same ideology that you have. And so if you really want to do a little bit of research and to make sure that your money's going to where it can make the biggest impact, I'm sure Kevin has put the that Republicans Young Guns list up there someplace, and look at those candidates. And if those individuals are fighting the good fight and are going to be able to stand up for you in the way that you feel they need to, if you have either time or money to be able to donate to those races, I guarantee that they're looking for everything for door knockers to phone calls, to just those donations just to get the word out. So please.
It's an all hands on deck moment. It
Yeah,
is. We've
this is
all got
a,
to reach into our wallets and do whatever we can. We actually have to get out there and act like no one's going to save the country for us. We have to get personally involved.
they're not. If you are hearing this, you are part of the resistance. So go
Yeah.
out there and let's make a difference. We have, I think it's less than 100 days to election day.
Yep.
It's a countdown, and in my opinion, you should be doing something every single day, everything that you possibly can. And the first step that you guys need to, each and every single one of you, make sure that you're registered to vote. If you've got one of those brand spanking new real IDs from the state of Oregon's DMV, then you better check to make sure that you're still registered to vote, because sometimes
It's
that
changed.
changes.
Yep.
With or without your permission.
Well, and I would add to that you need to check with other people and make sure they understand what's happening, because a lot of them aren't getting this information. They live in a little news silo. I can't tell you how many times I've looked somebody in the face who said, I think I don't really know who to vote for, but I heard good things about Val Hoyle, and I'm like, did you know she's under federal investigation? No. Oh, well, let me tell you about that. And this is the thing. It's like people simply don't know this stuff, and they get railroaded into voting for people, and it costs an enormous amount of money to reach people that are tuned out or listening to the wrong news, the news that didn't tell them that Joe Biden was a mental invalid. No one should spend any time following a news station that covered up Joe Biden's unbelievable cognitive decline.
That's dangerous.
That's dangerous. Yeah. I mean, it's really treason to do that, but it's legal because of freedom of speech. But then you got to use your freedom of speech to tell people what's happening. And if they think you're crazy, follow our show. We post everything here. And you can just go back to this on Facebook anytime and say, I know I heard Kevin talk about that. I heard Stephen mention it, and just grab that and share it with somebody. It'll work. You can save the Republic, but you got to talk to people, and you got to call out the phoniness, the lies, because we're not being served by these people. The country will be, if you think it's a mess now, you ain't seen nothing until a year of Kamala Harris with a speaker, Hakeem Jeffries, and a Val Hoyle, who's probably going to be the chair of whatever oversees the marijuana industry. Guaranteed. That's her ambition. She doesn't care about any other businesses. She only cares. And fine, it's a business. But you know what? There's a lot of people who would like inflation to be lower. They would like their streets to be safe. They would like that border closed until we figure out how to secure it and control whether or not terrorists come in. Not to mention gang members and fentanyl smugglers and smuggling children across that border and selling them into sex slavery. Enough, right? We can do something about it, and it's on a knife's edge. I think we all want to have respites from all the stuff that's happening in the news, but it's coming right at us, and we got to pay attention. So tell me lastly here, what's happening with the Young Republicans right now? I know you guys are really busy, and we can wrap up with that so that we get the word out.
So I'm super, super proud. All my Young Republicans, we had a number of them go up to Milwaukee and do the RNC event. That was really, really exciting. We're getting back into in campaign season. If you have candidates that you want Young Republicans to go out and work those campaigns, reach out to the Young Republicans. You can find us on our website, YRO at GOP, and you can find us all over social media, any place. Just go ahead and drop us a line. We're always happy to have you. And we're constantly working in order to try and make those young people as professional political people as they possibly can. If you have opportunities, they want to have an opportunity to come work for you, work with you. We look forward to this election season countdown, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So if you want to get involved, reach out to us, and we can get you plugged in. We can get you the training you need to win this republic, and we can't do it without you. So
And I'm
I'm on.
trying to post. I just posted a bunch of stuff I didn't intend to because I don't know how to highlight properly, but I'll delete those other things and make it easy for everybody to figure it out, because what we have right now is the Young
Oh, thank
Republicans,
you very much.
YouTube, and Twitter. Yeah, it's just, I don't know what it is. This mouse has not cooperated with me since I got it. And Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and you also have a podcast, which
Yep,
people
we
can
sure do.
follow as well.
Come check out our podcast anytime that you possibly can. We try to get all sorts of interesting people on there. And Kevin, we need you on my podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'd be great.
Awesome.
I keep up enough with the news that I can probably carry on a little bit of a conversation and keep some folks entertained. And frankly, I have always tried to make time for folks that are younger, because there was a time when I was a young Republican and people said, well, he's going to get involved and do something at some point. That'd be great. I'm like, well, it's because some people took the time to say, here's how you do it, or here's a perspective that might motivate you to get involved. And it worked. Here I am 22 years later. So
If you guys are interested on hearing how Kevin got involved in the political system and is the polished political individual, come join us on our podcast, and we'll get him on there for you.
well, thanks, Stephen, for joining me here tonight on, I know, as usual, very short notice, but I think this is a public service that we do, and there's a lot of people who need to know this information, and I know that it's delightful for them to also hear from the young Republicans, who are the future, without a doubt, of the Republican Party and of our republic. So thanks again for joining me.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Captive Audience. I will have Jeff Eager, former mayor of Bend and blogger, an investigator, come on and talk about the things he's been revealing, uncovering, and commenting on. He'll be on with me tomorrow night. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow night on the next episode of The Captive Audience.